Among the latest countries to impose a curfew, a 10-hour curfew from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. to stop the spread of this virus. Now, in his address, President Uhuru Kenyatta last evening announced a raft of changes as well in taxation aimed at cushioning the public against the tough economic times occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's look at these taxation changes now. With us here is our business anchor, Abby Agina. Abby, good to see you on Bottomline Africa today. A raft of taxation measures aimed at cushioning the public against these tough economic times. Let's perhaps take a look at some of them and explain to us what this means for SMEs and for individuals as well. Yes. If you could just take us briefly through what the President talked about yesterday.
Well, thank you, Michelle. Of course, a very momentous time for Kenya, looking at the tax measures that the President instituted yesterday. This comes just to cushion Kenyans, really. And of course, this will perhaps spiral off in the greater East African nations. We'll be also monitoring to see what the other governments will be doing. But coming closer home, one of the biggest wins, Michelle, was 100% tax relief for people earning 24,000 shillings and below. So this simply means if I'm earning 24,000, I will not be taxed a single penny. So you will...
The question is,
yes,
from when? I mean, it's end month.
And
people expect that this is effective March and you will receive your 24,000 shillings this week.
So unfortunately, most companies have already issued out their payrolls. So perhaps beginning end of April. So for now, it has passed most of the organizations that normally pay their staff before end of the month. But for those who are yet to be paid, it will be a really good end of March for them because they'll be able to take home a neat 24,000 shillings. And the other big win from these tax measures, Michelle, is the issue around the pay as you earn tax.
30 to 25% reduction.
Exactly.
There.
So this is a big win because for people earning just about 47,000 and above, that's where the tax band usually starts from when you look at the 30% tax that people pay to the Kenya Revenue Authority.
Right.
So by this, we are looking at people saving just about 5% of their income. So if you are earning, say, 100,000 shillings and you used to submit taxes worth about 30,000 shillings, so you'll have 5,000 extra in your pocket end of April in case you've already been paid. But if you've not been paid, end of March, you'll be having some more disposable income in your pockets or in your purse.
In my purse. I mean, like you said, we're looking at also what other, not just African countries, but other countries have done. Is there a country that has done away with taxation completely?
It's hard to say so because different countries are looking at different models. Kenya has, of course, led the way by showing that they can actually reduce taxation measures. The 24,000 taxation for 100% relief is a first one for East Africa. We've not seen any country announcing such measures, Michelle. So on that front, it's a really big win. And of course, Michelle, the other big issue that many Kenyans are looking forward to is the fact that the elderly people and the vulnerable groups will be getting some money at the end of the month. The government set aside 10 billion shillings, and this will be really crucial in terms of cushioning Kenyans who are not in any gainful employment.
All right, so this is the 100% tax relief, 30 to 25% reduction of pay as you earn. Let's move on as we take a look at what else has been imposed in terms of tax relief. And here we go, reduction of corporation tax as well. What is the impact of this?
Many companies are currently in a quagmire. When you look at the corporation tax, it's at 30%. Whatever money you make as a company, your turnover. For instance, if Standard Group made 100 million, we're looking at a corporation turnover tax of 30%. This has been reduced by 5%. This is quite significant, Michelle, by all estimations. Companies will be able to have some savings because of the hard economic times. This is supposed to sort of insulate companies when you look at the tax submissions that they make to the tax authorities every month. So it's a step in the right direction, but of course there are calls for a further reduction, which is neither here nor there. All
right, so a lot of business terms really when the President was giving that address yesterday. Among the things he also mentioned a 3 to 1% reduction of turnover tax rate. What does this mean?
Very touchy subject, this one, Michelle. Turnover tax in this context means any small business. The turnover figures that you report. By turnover, it's simply the revenue you've made that particular month. So if, say, I'm in the flower business, I sold flowers at City Market, my turnover was, say, 200,000. Ideally, you're supposed to submit close to 5% in terms of turnover tax. So this has been reduced to the level of about 3 to 1%.
And again, is this immediate? Is this for the month of March? Because as it is, we've seen many industries, including the flower industry themselves, hardest hit in this month of March.
Very good question, Michelle. It's very hard for me to give a date when this starts to be implemented. But what we know so far is that the speakers of the Senate and the National Assembly have actually called for Parliament to convene on the 31st of this month, where they'll be deliberating all these measures. Out of that, that's when we'll be having a clear picture exactly as to when some of these taxation measures will be taking effect. Some of them require the various committees in the House to approve before this can be gazetted, because it's as much as these were executive measures by the President, some of them require consensus within the various arms of government, and that is, of course, the Parliament, which has to weigh in this very touchy subject.
So, I mean, basically this means that businesses just have to pay 1 shilling for every about 100 shillings that they make. Let's move on and see what more comes with these tax relief measures. And like you mentioned, several pay cuts from senior government officials. But the question is, where is this money going to be channeled to and how is it going to be used? But let's finish up with this. A 16 to 14%, or between 16 and 14% reduction of VAT effective the 1st of April 2020.
So this is, of course, doesn't require the Parliament's approval. This is simply the Minister or the Cabinet Secretary in the National Treasury to gazette it, and it takes effect. VAT touches every person in the economy. By this we mean anything that we buy that has been processed. It is attracting value-added tax. For instance, looking at the cooking oils that people buy to use in the house. This will mean you'll have a 2% reduction in the cost of cooking fat when you go to the supermarket. If you were to give a quick example, if say you're buying 5 liters of Golden Fry or Elianto, you're going to spend about 200 shillings less. It's not so significant, but it is a step in the right direction, Michelle.
Because it does help cushion.
Oh, yes.
Cushion the Mwananchi from this. And then, of course, a temporary suspension of listing with CRB effective 1st April 2020. And I'll tell you, this is what captured the attention of most Kenyans from that address by the President.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. What does this mean? And is this for everybody in the country?
Wow, Michelle, this is a very emotive question for Kenyans right now. Many Kenyans are asking on social media, trying to understand, am I now off the list?
Yeah, am I off the list?
If I was there in the first place? Or what happens next? So simply put, the government is saying, in case you have challenges servicing your loan, the bank usually communicates this to the Credit Reference Bureau. And by this, they are submitting your details to that particular agency. So for now, your name will not be submitted as someone who has defaulted, but it will be submitted to capture that you are not servicing your loan. But it doesn't mean you are in bad standing. You can be listed in the CRB for a negative cause or a positive cause. For positive cause is you've been in a situation.
Your payments.
Oh yes. The negative side of it means you've defaulted. So Kenyans need to get it clearly, and our East African viewers as well, Kenyans in the diaspora, the fact that temporary suspension doesn't mean if you're in the list you've been removed. It simply means you're still there. Number 2, for those that are defaulting, you are having, should I say, a window period, exactly, to just, as the economy bounces back post-corona, you will not be subjected to the CRB listings. And one of the big questions, Michelle, is if I'm in the CRB listing, what does it mean? It simply means if you've been listed, you're being considered as high risk, that we cannot lend to you because you have defaulted, you've been captured in the Credit Reference Bureau, and it simply means this particular customer is a very risky customer. So by this, it will save many Kenyans who perhaps are struggling financially to service their loans. It will give them temporary relief because you will not be listed in the CRB. Because right now the government has said suspend any listings.
The CRB. But a lot of questions I'm seeing on social media coming, does it mean now that there's this temporary suspension of CRB, then I can approach a financial institution and get some financing?
Definitely, yes. You can still access capital in the form of loans from financial institutions. And if you are listed in the CRB, you're not going to be able to access a loan facility. But right now, if you've defaulted but you need another loan, you can actually walk into a bank and say, I need a loan. Over and above having the loan that you are servicing, that you have temporarily been affected to pay, you can still access your loan.
Right.
I don't know if I'm making sense.
This makes sense. And of course, even as we wind up on this, the directions were given from the Central Bank of Kenya on what banks could do. So is it effective? Can I walk into a bank now and ask for a restructuring of my loan, or is there a period we must wait for banks to get their act together?
So the announcement took effect immediately, almost immediately. Any customer who has a loan facility with a commercial bank can actually access their bank and actually request for an adjustment in their repayment plan. And the repayment plan will be spread only for a year. So if, give or take, Michelle, you had a loan you were servicing of 5 million shillings and it was due in April, you can simply walk into the bank and say, guys, I have a financial flow challenge. I'm requesting my loan to be spread further. So this, what it means is, Michelle, from that 5 million that you're servicing, perhaps you're being deducted, say, 100,000 per month.
Right.
If it is restructured and you pay within a year, they simply say, if you're paying 100,000, we are reducing it to 20,000 per month. Until next year, at such a time, you should have cleared your loan.
All right. So there's quite a few measures there put in place by the government to cushion Kenyans on the same many things. That is Abi Agina. He is our business anchor here on KTN News. Now, from